Welcome back, everyone, to Aspire to Lead, where we will be discussing the visions, inspirations, and experiences from top educational leaders. My name is Joshua Stamper, and you can connect with me on Twitter or on Instagram at Joshua_Stamper. All right, welcome back, Aspire Leaders. We are coming back for another Aspire Mailbag. This is the 33rd episode. I can't believe my friend and COO and co-founder of Teach Better has been with me for this long. It's been years that we've come together for a special time to answer the listeners' questions, and I'm just so grateful that Jeff Gargas keeps showing up.
It's probably 5 years. We're probably like at the 5-year anniversary at this point, right? Because it was around this time in 2020, because it was right after the 2019 Teach Better conference that you asked me to do the first one. So I'd have to go look back, but I bet it's probably February, March, something like that of 2020. So we're looking at 5 years, dude. That's crazy.
That is. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, it was right after the 2019 conference.
Yep. Yeah. I bet it's February when you put out the first one.
That's cool.
Celebrate. Yeah, we should be doing. All right, we need to look at that. Someone needs to confirm that for us, and we need to decide whether this episode was supposed to be the anniversary celebration, or if we need to record another one. Either way, I think we need to record another one.
Because then there's got to be balloons, confetti.
I know, hats, it's got to be something. So yeah, okay. Well, that's pretty crazy, dude.
Well, I mean, for a week of celebration, I just want to let everyone know that Charlie Peck and I have a brand new book, The Language of Behavior, out. So if you haven't caught the bonus episode where I read the first introduction chapter, you can definitely go back and listen to that. But also, Jeff Gargas was a part of that celebration, as on the launch day, we went live with Teach Better. Jeff facilitated that conversation, and Charlie and I got to talk about the process, talk about why we created the book, and more about the resource in general. And so with that, I just want to thank you, Jeff, for allowing us to be on there and for the celebration.
Well, I thought that since I, wrote 50% of the book, designed the cover, did the editing, and paid for all the publishing, that I should probably help celebrate it as No, but you are a part of the process, because without you and Teach Better, Charlie and I probably would have never. That's awesome. So that one is awesome and really cool to know. That's one of the reasons we do the things that we do. So that's really cool. But it was really cool just to be a part of it, knowing both you and Charlie for a while, you for a long while now, Charlie for several years now, and knowing the work you do and getting excited when you both first originally told me that you were writing a book. Get an opportunity to read it prior to the publishing and provide an endorsement for it, and then getting to be a part of it, of your celebration, is just super cool. Like it's not something that I take lightly at all. And so it's a lot of fun. It was really cool to just kind of throw some questions at you, hear a little bit of the story that I didn't know, and to continue to celebrate. I know it's sitting at number 1 on a couple of the charts right now on Amazon, which is awesome. It is a good book. I'm sitting here very impatiently waiting for my signed copy.
It's coming. Tomorrow is when I get my author copies.
So is it really? So
sign them and sign it and send it to you. Yeah, I've got.
But you have to send it to Charlie first, so then Charlie can sign it and say, it's got to be a thing. No, but it's been fun. Now we're starting to see the people getting the books and doing the pictures online and post them on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook and stuff, which is always a lot of fun. So it's super cool. So I appreciate being a part of that.
Yeah, man, it's been surreal. Obviously, this. A book is a labor of love. It takes a long time to get it all constructed, and then to actually have it in hand was pretty special. So, and Charlie is amazing. She's phenomenal, and just honored to be a part of that with her. So with that, let's transition over to our questions. Just to kind of set things up, for those who have maybe never listened to an Aspire Mailbag before, Jeff and I come together, and we, obviously have reached out to you all, the listeners, to ask for leadership questions via Twitter, Instagram, and Boxer. And so specifically right now, and I think this is, Jeff, probably because of the time in the calendar, it's teacher evaluation season. So I got 2 questions. Typically we answer anywhere between 2 and 5 questions, but I really wanted to focus on these 2 because I think we can really hone in on this and do a deep dive. The 2 people that sent them in wanted to be anonymous, and I think it makes sense. As you're doing teacher evaluations, you probably don't want to come back for some of the things that are being discussed. So typically we try to shout out people, but due to the nature of the questions, I think we're going to just keep them anonymous. So if you're ready, I'm going to go with the first question here.
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So the first question is, how do you know when it's time to coach someone out instead of coaching them up?
Ooh.
Which is a very interesting question.
That is a good question. So I think one depends on what out means. I think that's a key clarification of what does that mean? Like
out of the
yeah,
profession.
and obviously there's a like that. I don't feel like coaching out is necessarily the same as firing, right? Firing is like you're not really coaching them, you're just firing them. So I wonder if coaching them out is more representative of coaching them out of the profession, or maybe it is out of the team, so it's less of a fire and more of a amicable like split, right? Because they just don't fit into your culture, your space, or with your students or whatever it is. And I've talked about this before. I don't know if it was with you or who, or if it was on a live or podcast. It was a while ago. I said once, and it was a weird. I can't remember the conversation. I don't remember anything of it except for kind of what I talked about, which was that I believe like one of the best things you actually can do as a leader for the person, the students, the community, and education as a whole is to tell someone if you don't believe that they are meant to be a teacher. And that's like a really hard, and I hope that might rub someone the wrong way. Hearing that, it's really difficult to do. And this is not like all the time. This would be the rare case that you really discover and you sense that this person just does not believe in what they're doing. They're not passionate about it. They don't love it, and they're really not good at it, and they're actually doing more harm than good. And to me, I think that's like that's a tough conversation to have. But I believe if it's the right situation, that person will thank you for it later on in life. Well, they might not, but they should, because I think people who get into teaching, if they somewhere down the line realize that they're like, I'm just not good at this. I don't like this. This isn't what I thought it was. I don't have the passion anymore. I'm not supposed to be here. It's really tough to leave. One, because changing careers is scary and hard. You've put time and effort, energy, and money into getting that degree. That's a tough thing to walk away from. But also, like, it's a service industry. You're serving. And if you step away, like, it's tough to say, I'm going to step away. I'm not going to try anymore. I'm going to give up on these kids, and I'm not going to service people. Like, so there's a lot of reasons it's tough to do. So I think having the ability to be willing to have those conversations with someone is super important. If that's what we're talking about when we talk about out. I think there's other aspects of talking out, which may just be similar, but less of a, you're not supposed to be a teacher, more of a, hey, I just don't think we are the right fit for what you are trying to do as a teacher. And I want to help you find your way out. I think where you find that, in my opinion, is you have to have some sort of system for, just like we do with students, our tiers of intervention and assessment stuff. Like, you have to have that with your staff. Like, okay, at what point, and this is a system, at what point is it like, what are all the things I can attempt to do to improve this person's lack of ability or lack of ability to meet the standards that we've set for our teachers. And once I have tried all those with a lot of time for each of them, then at that point, that is now we have to talk about either firing, talking them out of the profession, or I think probably more likely is like, hey, you're a great teacher, but this is not the right fit for you. There's personalities that are clashing. There are belief systems that just don't make sense. And this just isn't the right fit. And so I think it's time for us to look at, like, let me help you. Let's see if we can find you somewhere else that makes more sense. But I think that has to come after you got to give the right effort of trying to fix the issue and trying to do the support and documenting that support, so that when that conversation comes, it should not be a surprise to that person, right? If that's a surprise to them, then the communication was falling off. And Josh, I'm interested to hear what your thought, because you've actually probably done this. So,
oh my gosh, yeah.
I've done it in other industries, not with teachers. And I think that's different, right? Obviously it's different, every different thing. So I'm curious to hear how you've approached this in your role.
Well, I think what you're saying is 100% correct, in the sense that you need to be visible. You need to have things documented. You need to make sure that there's constant communication. And that goes with the coaching up piece. If you're looking to get someone out, let me just say, as far as an administrator, that is a very difficult process, and one where HR has to be in agreement. You have to have all your ducks in a row as far as documentation, and you got to have a lot of things put in place. And if they're not hurting kids, most likely they're staying where they're at. So there has to be something pretty big for the district to move forward. And there's a lot of legal reasons for that, and we're not going to go into that. But just for a teacher that's listening, or maybe a coach, just understand that the process is lengthy, and it takes a lot for them to actually be removed as far as a non-renewal. So I just want to put that out there first. So I always would talk to my leaders on the campus as far as we're coaching up. And as far as the hiring process, and I had an HR director tell me once before, like, when you're hiring, you're not hiring for your campus, you're hiring for the district. Because most likely, if it's not a good fit for them where they're at, they're not going to a different district. They're probably going in-house. They're going to an elementary school that's nearby, a high school nearby. And then also, if they're rock stars, they're not staying on the campus level because they're getting moved up. One way or another, they're probably not going to stay on your campus for the duration of their career. So just have that mindset when you're hiring people, that is this someone that you are hiring for the district for the long term. Now, going back to the coaching out piece, I've had many, many really difficult conversations. It's not fun. It's really hard, but I'm with you, Jeff. Honesty is the best piece there. And obviously there's a way to communicate it where you're not hurting feelings, or you're trying not to hurt feelings. Teaching is difficult because it's a part of who they are as far as their identity. And so when you have that as a piece of essentially their ego, when you're saying something negative about that, most likely there's going to be some type of defense that goes with that. So there's ways to communicate to kind of soften that. But at the same point, you want to make sure that you're being honest and giving constructive feedback so that they can get better at what they're doing. And sometimes that conversation needs to be, hey, maybe it's a different subject. Maybe it's a different grade level. Maybe you're in secondary and you need to go to elementary. Your skill set based on what we've seen, and here's the evidence of that. Maybe you're a better fit there, right? So having those conversations, if you feel like there might be a better fit, maybe just out of education as a whole, but there might be other components that they might fit better.
Yeah.
The other thing too is like, sometimes they don't agree with you and they're going to dig their heels in. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example, and I won't use this teacher's name. Let's just say Mr. Johnson. So Mr. Johnson, I came to Mr. Johnson and gave some critical feedback and tried to do it in a very nice way. And he said, I will be here longer than you. I am not going to do X, Y, and Z. And that was it, right? That was the stance. Guess what? He was right. He was there much longer than I, but I could still put some things in place to kind of help massage the idea that I'm going to make it uncomfortable for you because I want you to be the best version of yourself. You're not being efficient. You're going through every day at the lowest level possible. You're just kind of getting through the day and not doing much as far as engagement with the kids and whatnot, right? So my job, okay, I understand you don't want to go anywhere. You're not quitting teaching. You feel like you're doing an adequate job, but I'm not going to stop as far as your administrator to give you feedback and try and do everything possible to make sure that you're giving our kids a wonderful educational experience. And so did that teacher get pushed out? No. Did that teacher go to another campus? No. But we did do some things. So for instance, we moved them to a different grade level. Same subject, but we just made a simple shift. And that shift, although it turned into a nasty drag out fight as far as they didn't want to go anywhere because they were comfortable in their setting and their subject matter and what they had constructed. Even the room, we changed the room on them because they had changed the grade level. The next year, they were way better because it kind of put a spotlight on them, like, hey, kind of like shaking them a little bit, like, hey, what you were doing for so long isn't working anymore. Let's change it up. Let's massage this into a better situation. And so there's a lot of things that you can do as far as admin or coaching to help them understand that there is a shift that needs to happen without trying to get them fired. Most likely that person's going to be on your campus regardless. So what is it that you can do to help coach them up?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's like to your point, that's a version of the coaching out. And that might be what this person was asking, right? This coaching out. Well, maybe you're coaching them out of that classroom or that grade level or that building or that subject or whatever. And I think that's a key. I think a big key in there, and you kind of talked about like, we talked about documenting and going there and how they might fight it. Like, and you talk about like the honesty, I think of kind candor, right? Gary Vee talks about that a lot, right? Like that's like, you don't have to be a jerk about it, but keeping it constant communication and informing them of things and sharing the process. And at some point in those steps, there's got to be a step where you say, hey, just so you know, here's all the things we've tried. And here are the things I'm going to try. So just so you know, this is what we're doing. And like, I'm trying really hard to be here for you because I believe that you're a good person, and that you want to be whatever the positives are. But here's issues and we got to fix them. And I think that's a crucial piece of this. Again, having your system, documenting, being transparent and communicating with them and documenting that communication so that you have what you need to then do what you need to do the right thing for kids. Tough situation no matter what, though.
I'm with you. Like, you got to document, you got to have evidence. And when you're having this crucial, you can't be like, oh, I feel like you're doing this. No, you need to make sure. Like, I had a teacher, it was my principal and myself. We had a crucial conversation and I was asked by the principal, what is your take on the instruction provided in the classroom? And I was like, it's a sit and get. It's instruction for a long period of time. And then at the end, the students get a little bit of work time, bell rings, move on. The teacher got very angry, said that they didn't agree with, what I had stated. And I said, look, I have it documented, and I gave a timestamp as to when instruction started, when instruction was ending, and when the students worked. And I had it timestamped as to how long. And it was literally 40 minutes of instruction, 5 minutes of work time, and then the bell rang. So I had all my ducks in a row for that conversation to be like, I was just in there. This is what I observed. Here's my timestamp. And then I saw the light bulb moment of, okay, I don't have anything to really say at this point because the evidence is there. And it did get better from there because it was brought up and the evidence was there.
You're right, because that evidence can, one, give you what you need to do if they continue to be combative. Or two, that might have just made them go, oh, crap. Like, I really thought I was, I did not think that I was that, but that sounds bad. And like, that might be it, right? So I think it's so important to have that transparency and that communication as early as possible so that, again, it should not be a shock to them. And you never know where in those steps, like, hopefully you don't need to go all the way to whatever it is, trying to push them out or move them, because somewhere along the way, you might say the thing, or they might hit the thing that triggers it and clicks and gets them to make the change, which now allows you to go back to coaching up.
Yep. All right. I'm going to go to the second question.
Yeah, let's go.
Because I think this actually correlates quite well to something I want to talk about that you brought up. So this one's anonymous also, but the question is, how do we coach teachers so they don't feel fear through the process of the evaluation, which is a very natural emotion that teachers go through?
Well, go ahead. You said you wanted to talk about something I said. Is that?
Well, you had talked about just the honesty component and like the trust that was being hopefully built. And I think that's really important as far as whatever your leadership role is, to make sure that they truly understand that you're there because you want them to be better and that you want the best for them as an individual. There's a lot of ways that you can do that, but I think that's where it comes in as far as the evaluation. And I'll give you an example. There's plenty of times where I've gone into a classroom, a teacher's selected a certain class period, a certain time that they want me to come in to observe. That's very typical. And I would try to do everything possible with my schedule to make sure that I went into that class period. Let's be honest, most teachers pick the best class that they have. Sure. that's going to produce the best environment for them to get their highest rating. Well, sometimes things go sideways. You know, the lesson they thought was going to be this brilliant lesson plan, and maybe it's the first time they've done it, doesn't go very well. Well, for me as the administrator, I could be like, oh, gotcha, and give them horrible ratings and do that. Well, if I've been in a classroom a bunch and I've had a relationship with them, I know who they are as a teacher. Well, obviously that's not a very good reflection of who they truly are based on the 45-minute glimpse that I get to go in there and see. Well, for me, I bring them in, I have a coaching conversation with them. And most times these teachers, they know that didn't go well. They'll be the first ones to say that. Well, then I just do it the same way I do with, if I was a teacher, let's do a redo. That didn't go well. So I coach them up of what I observed. Here's the evidence of that. These are the things that I would change. And this is how we're going to fix it. And then I come in and I do it again. And then obviously it goes better. And then that's the one I take for evaluation. Well, guess what? That process right there shows that I'm there for the long run. I'm there to help them. I'm there to coach them. I'm there not as a gotcha, let's get you out of here because you suck. It's because I want to build you up and I want you to be the best version of yourself. So that's just one strategy of many that you can provide as far as helping them with the fear of like, I'm not there to come down on you. I'm not there to try and give you the worst ratings possible. I'm here to make you the best version of yourself.
Yeah, that was an awesome example, because I think it's what springs to my head is, well, that's culture.
Yeah.
Which I know is cliche, but it's the same thing. If you think about like students who are terrified of tests and the grades they're going to get, what happens with that? If you can get the students to understand that grades are simply just a communication tool for us to know where we're at and what we need to work on, it makes that a lot less fearful for them. I've seen this literally, anecdotally, obviously, but my daughter, who has an extreme level of anxiety and stress, like crazy for a 10-year-old, like she's had it her entire life. And 3 years ago, 3 years ago, like she would like just be, I mean, it was everything we had to get her to school on a day of a test, because she was so terrified. And she usually did well. She's terrified. Or she'd get a grade back that wasn't what she wanted, and it would just destroy her. And I worked like tirelessly to can tell her again and again. I'm like, Daddy works with teachers all over the country and all over the world, right? Yeah. I'm like, do you know what they tell me all the time? They're like, what? I'm like, do you know what grades mean? She's like, what? I'm like, nothing. They're just a tool for them to know where you're at. So if you don't get a good grade, that just tells your teacher, hey, here's what Jacqueline needs help with. It's good. Now she knows. Otherwise, she wouldn't know, and then she can't help you. And it took a while, but she doesn't have that fear anymore. Now she does, and she does really well now too. But I think it's the same thing when you do this. Like I've seen this in jobs where I've had to evaluate people, and I have to grade people, and I have to, for whether it was for just typical evaluations or for pay raises or whatever. The reality is when it comes to evaluating teachers, like they need to understand what the actual purpose is. And if your purpose is to ding them, then they're going to feel that. If your purpose is to try and help them be better, they're going to feel that too. And you need to talk to them about that. You need to explain that. And then they need to see it in practice, more important, right? So you could say all you want. Hey, Jeff, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And then you come evaluate me. And like, I have a bad one. I'm like, oh God, like that, this clearly didn't work. And you're just like, oh, gotcha. Like, I'm not trusting you anymore. But the fact that you then say, hey, didn't go really well, huh? No. Okay, great. Let's redo it. Let's talk about what didn't go well. And let's find another date. I'll come back in. Let's try it again. Let's see if we can make it better. Now I'm going, oh, so Josh is legit. He does want to help me do. In fact, he's taken another day out of his time to come back to my room and let me do it again. I fell on my face. I'm going to fix it. And so now I'm more likely to go, you know what? He's coming back. I'm still going to try a new lesson because I know that if I fall flat, he and I are going to discuss this. And so like that takes a while to build up because especially with, I would say with more veteran teachers, because they've gone through some bad evaluations most likely. And you got to kind of break that of like, no, I actually do, like, this isn't the typical thing. And so that's a culture thing, just like any other piece of culture. Like it takes a while to build. It takes a lot of consistency, a lot of transparency, a lot of communication and following through to build that. But I think that is the key to it. Mm-hmm. And I know that's hard because there's someone that's listening going, yeah, but their pay raise and stuff is attached to their evaluations. And that's true. I'm going to go back into my world of like when I worked in restaurants and I was training younger staff, how I would go to them and say, hey, this didn't go well. And I really want you to get that raise at the end of this quarter. So here's what we're going to work on. And so here's what I want you to do. Here's what I'm going to do. You let me know. I'm like, I want to do this. We're going to do a mock one here so that when you get to the final one and I've got to like truly evaluate you and I can't be as quote unquote nice and I have to do it. Like I want to be able to look at my boss in the eyes and say, she earned it. She absolutely deserves this raise, right? I don't want to, and you don't want me to just lie, right? So like same type of thing. Like, hey, if it is connected to whatever you raise or whatever, like make them understand, and you better actually want to. Like, I want to get you there, Josh. I want you to win, not so that I look good, right? So that you get that accolade, so that you get that reward or whatever that might be, right? Mm-hmm. And in turn, I'll probably look good as a leader too. So
yeah, I'm going to throw something else out too, as far as like. I love what you were correlating as far as students and grades, because I mean, I see that in my house too with my kids, and there's a lot of anxiety with that. So what I would do with observations, sometimes I do a flipped observation. So like ask them, hey, I'm going to come in and I want you to tell me what you want me to look for. So we're just identifying one thing, something that maybe you have a question on, or maybe you're like, you know what, the skill is deficient and I want to build it up. And so I'd love for your feedback just in one thing. So they would tell me what that is. Maybe it's like asking high level questions. Maybe it's traveling around the room, and I'd actually like plot it out as far as putting dots as to where they stood in the classroom. Sometimes it was classroom management, right? So there's like a bunch of different topics that teachers would hone in on and then ask that question. And so I come in with a feedback form that I created and just have the topic that they wanted me to only observe. And this gives them control, which helps deflate that anxiety. And they knew I was in there only to look at that one thing, and they would focus on that. And then I give them the feedback on, the couple classes that I was able to bounce into and maybe spend like 15 minutes or maybe a whole class period, depending on my schedule. But that was like a coaching piece too, that I was able to provide. And that wasn't something that I put into any evaluation. It was just purely just between me and them and allowing them to get better and hone on their skills. So, there's ways that as an administrator, you can the more you're there and the more you're present, the less that anxiety goes down.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah. The other two Absolutely. Is like having those conversations, those coaching conversations, and them truly understanding that you're there for them. And you talk about horror stories. There are plenty of teachers that have had trauma and just terrible situations. And even for myself, I had an administrator that evaluations year after year, they never came to my class. Not once. They just gave me great ratings and moved on. And I was like, okay, thank you. But at the same point, like as a teacher, I was like, how is that helping me? How is that building me up? Like, you don't know if I'm doing a terrible job or a wonderful job. You pop in for 2 minutes. a couple times a year, and then I got like a beautiful evaluation. I didn't feel great about that.
Because think of it was a negative evaluation. That's a lot different. I think that, and take this with the fact I've never been an administrator in a school. So like, just take that with this, right? But like, I think that like you should be in classrooms enough so that no one knows or needs to know when you're evaluating them, because you're just in there from time to time. And the time you come in to evaluate them should feel like any other time when you stop in. You just happen to take notes when you're leaving. And that's honestly how you're going to get a true evaluation too. Because as you know, like when you put a big emphasis on the evaluations, like a teacher's going to prep for it. Of course they are. Why would they not? Like
exactly.
And to be honest, like one of the things we always tell teachers all the time and team is like, hey, like if your lesson is not good enough to be evaluated, then it's not good enough for your students. But like the reality is we live in the real world. People are going to prep when the boss comes, period. But if you might stop in at any time, one, I'm going to be ready all the time. But also, as I understand that you might pop in at any time and it's all good, it's not to get me, then I'm just going to teach at the level that I need to teach at. I'm going to teach good all the time, and I'm not going to fake it when you come in. And the reality is like, yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to double down on that, Josh. Like you should be in classrooms enough so that when you go and evaluate, no one needs to know. And then later on, I get the note that says, hey, good job. And I'm like, holy crap. Oh, Josh was evaluating the other day. That's right. He did stop in on Wednesday. That's right.
Right.
Like that's what it really should be. And I understand that it's hard, easier said than done, right? To get in the classrooms that often, but that should be a goal. For sure.
And I think as far as me as an administrator, like if I didn't focus on that and I wasn't intentional about my schedule, it would go to the wayside. You can easily get stuck in your office.
Absolutely.
Just simply with email and parents and students and whatnot. But like being an individual where like, okay, this is important. I had it on my board. I had it on my computer. I told my secretary, I was very intentional about like, I had my spreadsheets, of course, because I love spreadsheets. And, I would make sure that was important. And I was trying to get out every single day in classrooms. And when I went into a classroom and a teacher didn't jump up right away and start putting on a show, that's when I was like, okay, I'm doing it the right way. Like I'm actually getting in classrooms where people are feeling comfortable, where it's not a feel of gotcha, or you can tell that they're nervous that the administrator walked in my classroom, and that's where I wanted to get, where just like you were saying, I was in there enough where it was just natural. Maybe I was taking notes, maybe I wasn't, but it wasn't a big deal because I was in there all the time. So I think that for everyone that's listening, I know as far as an administrator, it's probably one of the most difficult things to do is to get out of your office and get into classrooms. But Jeff is 100% correct in the sense that should be our goal, that we're in there so much that it's very natural with the students and with the teacher, and it's no big deal that you're there. That fear and that anxiety is just washed away.
The best place you can get to as a leader is for the people that you lead, the people that you quote unquote manage, to look at you as less of a manager or a leader or a boss, and as just another person on the team who happens to have a different role. And I know that's easier said than done, right? I hear that, but like that's the reality. Like that's what they should feel. And that will make your life so much easier when you don't have to lead with fear. You don't have to pull your leverage on them. They'll just want to follow you and want to listen and want to be better because you're part of the team and they don't want to let the team down. I think that's the key.
Awesome. Last question for our episode is, what is going on with the Teach Better team?
So I have two things that I'd love to share. One is Teach Better related. One is just selfishly Jeff related.
Okay, so, let's do it.
I know you know this, but I recently launched a new podcast of of my own, co-hosted with an entrepreneur buddy of mine. It's not in education; it is in the business space. But those of you who might have a side hustle or do anything like that, might find it valuable. I hope so. Yeah. Or if you just like me and want to support me, you can go give it a rating and review. I appreciate that as well. It's called Small Business BS. Yes, there's a little bit of comedy in the BS, but it's for business strategy, but purposely labeled BS, but really cool for just people who are getting started in business or growing businesses. So I'm really excited about that. It's a really fun, cool outlet for me. It's a great creative project and stuff. So I'm excited. So I'd love it if anybody wants to check that out. As far as Teach Better, I think the biggest thing honestly for your audience, Josh, is our administrator mastermind. Obviously you're very familiar with this. This is a part of something that you helped us really build and create a foundation for. The mastermind, it's kind of two parts. There's a free and private Facebook group that's there that you'll get access to by registering. But also we meet every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time for 45 minutes of brainstorming. This is a safe space to come. We do not record these meetings. They are completely, just in the group. What happens in mastermind stays in mastermind. You can come and bring ideas, challenges, brainstorming, if you just need to vet or complain, or if you just want to come and listen, because people bring other ideas and there's a lot of really great conversations. So if you go over to teachbetter.com/mastermind, it's free to register. You put your name and email in and you'll get the link to the weekly meetings plus some reminders for those. And you also get access to the Facebook group. So teachbetter.com/mastermind for that. I think that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough about this group of folks. They're amazing people. They're there for the right reasons. They want to grow themselves, but they also want to help. And so I've been a part of the mastermind from in an administrative role, come in every, Tuesday morning to try and, get a little of advice and then also learn from others. But then also, working with the Teach Better team, I had the opportunity to facilitate that conversation. And it's just such a fantastic group. So anyone that's listening, especially right now, as we are in the midst of just craziness as administrator, I know evaluations are going on. Student discipline is probably at an all-time high right now in February. And there's obviously a lot of other things that are pulling you in a million different directions. But if you want support, if you're looking for advice, if you're looking to learn from others and just find a good community, this is definitely a place to go. So head over to teachbetter.com/mastermind. Like Jeff said, I'll have the link in the show notes. And of course, for those who are watching on YouTube, all the links are on the screen for you. So you can head over to joshamber.com or you can go to YouTube, my channel, and check out this video and get the links there also. With that, I'm going to say that my dog has been crazy.
I was laughing because you asked me before we started whether I could hear her, and I couldn't, but I did hear her once. Good and I saw you look. She waking up?
My French bulldog, Pudge, she was snoring like crazy.
Well, what do you expect when you name her Pudge? Like, she's gonna snore. Like, you made it. Like, you.
She's pudgy.
She is pudgy. It is. There is no other name for that dog.
I love my dog like crazy. She's with me all the time, but she's been just so annoying this morning. But so, if anyone hears noises in my background, that is my French bulldog puppy that is snoring like crazy. So I apologize. Anyways, with that, Jeff, thank you so much for just your insights, dealing with my dog in the background, and always being available for the last 5 years on Aspire Mailbag.
Oh, I love it. It's 5 years. It's awesome. I don't know why you keep inviting me back, but I'll keep coming back if you do. So we'll keep rolling, man. It's going to be exciting when we hit 100 for this thing.
I know. Seriously. We'll get there for sure.
It's a good time.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at teachbetter.com/podcasts, and we'll see you at the next episode.